How is it going, guys? What's up? Back with another video. What's going on, lads? Good afternoon, gentlemen, lads, ladettes, and everything in between. So today I have a new exciting video for you where I talk about a budget kayak that I recently bought. I know, absolutely enthralling. This video is going to be so hard because I can just feel my dedication waning minute by minute. Before we get this video started though, I would like to do a quick shout out to my native adopted, and tomorrow is the inaugural weekend for my adopted team, the Washington Redskins, who are playing the Arizona Cardinals. So I'd like to give a shout out to them and the native Washington DC fan base. Here's to a beautiful, deeply enthralling season of abject mediocrity. So guys, ladies, here's to 8-8. Let's go. Hail to the Red Kit. So back to the purpose of this video, because I can't dwell on the Redskins for too long. I want to talk to you a little bit about the recent purchase of a budget kayak that I made a few months ago, and just sort of do like a follow-up update video where I talk a little bit about my early forays on the water with this kayak. So on my previous video, one of the commenters, who I believe is called Tom, so shout out to you, Tom. I see you, buddy. I see you. I see you, my friend. You're right there. You're in the lens. I'm here. Yeah, Tom from the last video, who's the only guy who commented on the video. Appreciate the engagement, Tom. I average about 1.3 comments per video, so you're really, you're right up there, dude. You're kind of an all-star, so I appreciate you very much. But Tom was asking to see if I could produce any more kayak content, seeing as I bought a freaking kayak. So here it is. In the months since I've had the kayak, I've managed to get out on the water, I believe twice. Yeah, I think twice. And I thought I'd just give you sort of my first initial impressions, having, stepped out on the water, taken it out for, 2 fairly decent excursions. And I'll just give you my initial thoughts and what I'm thinking about it a couple of months in. So as I said, I've gone on 2 excursions, so a combined total, I've probably logged somewhere in the range of like 9 to 12 hours on the water, on the kayak. So that kind of gives you an idea just of how long and how much experience I've managed to accrue thus far. So just to, give you some context, obviously I've not taken it out for hundreds of hours, so, don't take my my first impressions as sort of gospel truth here. So just bear that in mind as I'm, trying to talk a little bit about the kayak. So the very first time I went out on the kayak, I decided to go to a place called Roach's Run, otherwise known as the Waterfowl Sanctuary, which is right next to Ronald Reagan National, the airport based just outside of DC, which is the main hub for DC, alongside obviously Dulles. And it's a very good place to start because it's fairly shallow. The water doesn't get really much deeper than 10 to 12 feet at its deepest point, or so I'm led to believe. It's quiet, there isn't a lot of pressure. You only get a couple of guys fishing there on the weekends. It's very accessible. So they have a parking lot, but the parking lot is right next to the water. So we're talking maybe less than 20 yards from, your car to the water. So in terms of like, starting out on a kayak, it's the perfect place to start because you can just drive up, park, put the kayak on your shoulder, walk 20 yards, and then boom, there's the water, and you can just get on your way. So that was the main reason I decided to go there. Now, once I was parked up and I got the kayak off the roof rack and I got it to the water, loaded up fine, there was no issues. I'm traveling fairly light. I have a backpack, I have a milk crate. I only took 3 rods, so I wasn't heavily, endowed with a lot of gear. So it was a pretty easy setup, just getting the kayak ready. That first time I got on the kayak, it was kind of scary. I've never been on a kayak before, as I say. And the moment where I sort of pushed off from shore and I started just, getting like 10, 15, 20, 25 feet away from the shore, was kind of intimidating. Not gonna lie, which sounds crazy because I was maybe in 4 feet of water, maybe. I'd pushed off. I was maybe 25, 30 feet away from the bank, and I was sort of drifting, and I was just trying to get used to my paddling. And I was kind of scared because I realized, the first time in a kayak, that not only does the kayak move around quite a lot, but because I had very little experience, I wasn't really in control of it in terms of paddling and in terms of rotating it and moving it from side to side. So I was kind of struggling for the first 5 minutes or so. And obviously when you have a GoPro and you have 3 rods and all your equipment in the back, there is that little incentive in the back of your mind to get it right, because if you get it wrong and you tip the thing, all of your equipment is going to go in the water. So even though I tied things down, that was playing in the back of my mind. But after about 5-10 minutes, as I say, I think I got control of it. Obviously my paddling still needs work even now, but I felt that I could turn the kayak. I felt that I could get it going in one direction. I felt like I could put it in reverse just a little bit. So I felt comfortable enough to start my journey and start my expedition around the lake. So at first I sort of just went skirting around the bank, not really intending to cast out. I was sort of just, as I say, just getting used to it, sort of just wanted to put it in motion, get used to the movement, get used to turning it. So I decided to skirt around the bank for 5, 10, 15 minutes, just to get a little bit more accustomed. And after that, I threw out obviously a few casts here and there, but for the most part I was focusing on just getting a little bit of practice in on the kayak and moving it around, as I say. But after about 15 minutes, I decided to hell with it, I'm going to cross the lake. Now, as I was going over to the far bank, I noticed that it was, again, this is kind of difficult for me because I'm a beginner, but I felt that the kayak was tracking okay in the water. I felt that it did take a little bit of exertion to sort of keep it straight and narrow as I was trying to get across. Now there was a bit of a current and there was like a 5-6 mile an hour breeze, so bear that in mind. It wasn't necessarily exclusively the kayak, it may have been the conditions too, but even if it was the kayak, again, I've got to make small allowances just because it's a budget kayak. It cost $175. I can't really expect it to be, high. Well, at least I can't expect it to have high-end performance, is what I'm trying to get at. So, but I thought I'd bring it up and, full transparency, I felt it could have tracked a little bit better as I was crossing to the far bank. Now, once I got over there, I fished all along the bank. There was an inflow that's fairly popular for the bank fishermen on that side, so I went over there where there's a bit of a stronger current. I also fished the pads that are on the far side, and I managed also to discover this little, it's kind of like a little creek that connects to the larger body of water, and I managed to get the kayak and slip it in because it was nice and narrow and I had to move some logs and branches out of the way, but I managed to get the kayak in there, and that was actually where I caught my first fish. Now, unfortunately, I don't have it on camera. It was like a maybe 1.5 pound, 2 pound largemouth bass. So it was a nice way to sort of break the seal and sort of lose my kayak virginity. So I really appreciated the fact I was, I got on the end of something. Not that that really mattered. The whole point of that first trip really was to just get some experience, log some hours, get used to paddling, and just build up some experience. Like I was taking my rods, obviously, to try and catch something, but the main objective really was just to log hours and build up some experience. So the fish that I caught was a really nice bonus. So that first trip basically was just a recon mission to find out, what the conditions were like over at Roach's Run, to build up some experience, log some hours on the water, and then the bonus was really to see if I could catch a fish. And I managed to do all three. Had no issues getting it back to the shore, rigging it back on the car with the soft rack that I have. I found that, the kayak tracked okay, decently well. I think it probably could be better, but I'm not going to blast it too much just because it is a budget kayak. It didn't leak, didn't see any leaks. When I brought the kayak home and before I cleaned it, I just tipped it over and I just checked, in the hull to see if there was any moisture, if there was any, condensation, any residue, any spills, any leaks, and there was nothing. It was bone dry. So GG for Lifetime. Another thing that I would imagine you're concerned about, or at least interested in, is the paddle. Personally, what do I want to say about the paddle? The paddle's kind of heavy. I was I wasn't exhausted by the end of the trip, either the first trip or the second trip, but I was kind of tired, especially when you're going long distances, because here's the thing. When you're fishing along the bank or from a kayak, it's sort of a stop, go, stop, go, stop, go kind of affair. So you're going to be paddling to a spot, maybe where there's a laydown or some cover or structure. You're going to cast out a little bit, maybe spend 15 minutes there, and then you're going to paddle to the next spot, do the same thing, rinse, repeat. And that's not going to be too tiring, even with these sort of aluminium stock paddles that these budget kayaks come with. The problem is going to be when you're traveling significantly longer distances. So in my case, when I was crossing the lake from one side to the other, there was no stop, go, stop, go, stop, go. Like I kind of had to go in one trip, non-stop. So that was kind of difficult. And I imagine it was made more difficult because the aluminum paddle is kind of heavy. I don't know exactly how heavy it is. I would say it's probably in the region of 3 pounds, 2 to 3 pounds, which I think is kind of heavy for a paddle. So if you're looking for a budget kayak, definitely think about upgrading the paddle. I know I'm kind of in that thought process right now where, I'm sort of looking at some of these, reasonably priced carbon fiber ones just to minimize the weight. Because if you're going to be traveling, across a lake, or you're going to be going like 20 minutes non-stop to your prime fishing real estate, then you might want a paddle that's a little bit lighter than the ones that come with these budget kayaks. Just as a, food for thought, I guess. Also, I guess one of the major things you would be interested in if you're, looking for a budget kayak is, how comfortable was it? I was out there, as I say, I logged anywhere from 9 to 12 hours on the Lifetime Tahoma. And I'm going to guess you're wondering how comfortable that was after those 2 trips. Like, were you sore? Did your butt go numb? Were your legs numb? How was it? I think it was okay. I spent probably, 5 to 6 hours each trip. The entire time I was seated. I did not stand up once. That is something I don't think I can even do on this kayak, or certainly I don't think I'm capable of doing. I certainly don't feel comfortable doing, I should say. But I spent the whole time seated, and I've got to say, my ass didn't get numb, my legs didn't get numb. It was fairly comfortable. Now, as I mentioned in a previous video, I have upgraded the seat. Or if I hadn't mentioned it in the video, I will mention it in another video. I upgraded the seat to a stadium seat that you can pick up, to go watch your kids play baseball, that, go over a bleacher. That is probably the reason why it was reasonably comfortable, and I didn't get, a numb ass or numb legs. So if you're in the market for a budget kayak, I think I mentioned it in the previous video, but the one thing you're really going to have to look at is the seat, especially on the Lifetime Tahoma and the Lifetime Tamarack. Look at the seat, think about upgrading it, think about the options that are out there, because if you don't, I think you're not going to have a great time, and it's going to be pretty uncomfortable, and I think it will just impact your enjoyment when you're out there on the water. So, as I said, lads, at the beginning of this video, this is kind of just really my first impressions. I've only taken the kayak out twice, so obviously I'm still building up that experience, still trying to log some more hours. So I can't really at the moment give you like a vastly detailed take. But as we're entering the fall, where it's frankly a little bit nicer being outside, where it's not quite as unbearable in the heat as it is now, I'm hoping to get out a little bit more, log some more hours on the kayak, and bring you some more kayak fishing content. Now, obviously, I do have a schedule. I have an infant. and I do have a full-time job outside of YouTube. So it's kind of a full transparency. You know, I really can't do a video every other day. I don't even know if I could really do a video every week, but I'm going to try and at least put up 1 or 2 videos a month. And I know sometimes I don't really manage that. So I do feel a little bit bad about that because, you know, I know there's only like 30 of you who are subscribed, and there maybe is only maybe 1 or 2 of you who watch these videos with any regularity. But, you know, I'd like to provide fairly regular content, and I want to be honest with you at the same time. So it's kind of a balancing act, I guess. But aside from that, I do have some other content planned that I'm hopefully going to be filming and editing soon. I actually am thinking about branching out into another form of fishing. I'll let you try and guess what that kind of fishing is. But later today, I'm actually probably going to go out and really, you know, dive into it. So hopefully soon I can give you some, you know, kayak content and maybe some new content too. So I appreciate you lads and ladettes stopping by. And as always, I hope you have a great day. Have a great weekend. I know it's raining in DC and Nova, but you know, try and get out there and fish if you can. And obviously, if you're out in the world, a ways from DC, try and get out, have some fun on the water, and I'll see you next time. Take care, lads. Have a good one. Bye bye.
Smell.